For 11 years I swept the sunken wing, after the last visitor left, and the lights dimmed to half. They paid me to keep the floors clean, and the glass cases free of dust. And I did that job the way you do any job you intend to keep. Quietly, completely, without complaint. The wing was the museum's smallest gallery, and its strangest. A single vaulted room built around the codex, a slab of gray stone the size of a dinner table, raised on a black plinth, covered edge to edge in cipher marks no living scholar had ever made speak. The plaque outside called it Drowned Court Artifact 1, recovered from the silt of the Hallow Strait, 43 years before I was born. I called it, in my own head, the Old Book, because that was what it looked like under the gallery lights. A book that had forgotten how to open. The colony itself wasn't much. A harbor town built up around the dredging operation that had first pulled the strait's secrets out of the mud, then a museum built to house whatever the dredgers found too strange to sell. Most of what came up was pottery and door fittings, ordinary wreckage of an ordinary drowned town. The codex was the one piece nobody could explain, and so it got its own room, and its own line item in the budget, year after year, long after the funding for everything else had dried up. Every scholar who came to question it left disappointed. I watched them come for a decade, credentialed linguists from the capital, 2 off-world cryptographers, a retired admiral who claimed a family link to the salvage crew, and spent 3 weeks running a handheld scanner over the stone, muttering frequencies under his breath like a man trying to flatter a locked door. He asked me once, on his way out for the last time, whether I'd ever noticed it do anything strange at night. I told him no, it was true then. He nodded like he'd expected exactly that answer, and never came back. They all brought instruments, theories, sometimes entire teams. They touched the old book's surface with gloved hands, and recited what they believed were its names. Nothing in that stone ever answered any of them. After enough years of that, the museum stopped funding new attempts, and let the wing go quiet, which suited me fine. Quiet was when the work got done. I never tried to read it. I didn't know how, and never pretended to. What I did, most nights, without deciding to, was talk to it the way you talk to a dog or a kettle or anything else that keeps you company at 3 in the morning. I told it about my knees, about the weather coming in off the strait, about my daughter's exam results. I dusted its surface with a soft cloth, the way you'd dust a photograph of somebody gone. Some nights, mopping the floor near its plinth, I hummed. An old tune my grandmother used to sing over the wash basin. 4 notes climbing, and 1 long note falling. No words I ever knew the meaning of. She said her mother sang it to her, and her mother before that, back further than anyone in our family had bothered to count. My own daughter hummed snatches of it too, picked up secondhand from hearing me do the dishes, the way a tune gets passed down without anybody deciding to pass it. The night it happened, I was tired in the ordinary way. Nothing about it felt marked for history. I'd finished the East cases and come round to the old book last, same as always, humming that same 4-note climb out of habit more than feeling. I had my cloth in hand, and was halfway through wiping grit from the lower left corner of the stone, when the cipher marks under my fingers went warm. I pulled my hand back the way you'd pull back from a stove, except there was no heat in it, only a kind of pressure, like the stone had taken a breath. Then the marks began to fill, not all at once, but a slow seep of pale blue-white light climbing each groove from the base of the slab toward the top, the way water finds the lowest point of a basin and rises through it. I stood there with my cloth still in my hand and watched 4 decades of dead cipher come alive in under a minute, light running along channels too fine to see under the gallery's ordinary lighting, gathering at the joints, brightening with every breath I took. I should have called someone. There was a protocol, framed and laminated in the staff room, for exactly this kind of event, and I had read it 100 times over the years, without ever expecting to need it. I did not call anyone. I stood very still, the way you stand near something easily frightened, and I kept humming, because stopping seemed like the wrong thing to do, and I had no better instinct to follow. The light reached the top edge of the slab, and the marks there rearranged themselves. Not randomly, but the way a hand rearranges cards it has already decided how to play. They folded into shapes I didn't recognize, and then, a breath later, into shapes I did, because whatever ancient system had built that stone reached forward across however many centuries and borrowed, gently, the alphabet I had grown up reading on cereal boxes and exam papers. Light-formed letters hung an inch off the surface of the old book, steady as carved wood, plain enough that even I, who had never once tried to read that stone, could read them without trying. Last Queen of the Drowned Court. I read it twice before I understood. It wasn't a description of someone else standing behind me. There was no one behind me. There never had been. Word got out the way it does in a small harbor town, not through any alarm I raised, but because the lights in the wing stayed on past my shift, and the morning curator found me still sitting on the floor by the plinth, not frightened exactly, just unwilling to leave before the glow finished settling back into the stone. Within a week, they had flown in a linguist, a quieter and far more humble one than any who'd come before. She didn't bring scanners. She brought a recorder and asked me, gently, to hum the tune again, exactly as I always had, and then she sat with her head bowed over the recording for the better part of an afternoon before she told me what it was. The 4 notes I had been humming, it turned out, were not nonsense. They were the opening phrase of a coronation invocation, the kind sung once at the raising of each new ruler of the drowned court, in the centuries before the Strait took the whole kingdom under. The full invocation ran 140 verses. In the fragments of the official record they eventually matched it to. Mine, my grandmother's, her mother's before that, was the first 4 notes and nothing else, worn down by however many generations of women who hummed it at wash basins without ever being told what it was for. Just a tune. Just something passed hand to hand because it was pretty, and because it was theirs, surviving a drowned kingdom and a few hundred years of nobody important by being small enough not to lose. The Codex did not care that I had no crown, no court, no claim anyone alive would recognize. It did not care that I could not read its language, had no education past what the colony school provided, and had spent 11 years calling it the Old Book in the privacy of my own thoughts. It had not been built, the linguist told me, to recognize scholarship. It had been built to recognize the line, and the line, it turned out, did not run through palaces. It ran through wash basins, through tired women, humming half-remembered songs to children who would one day hum them to children of their own, unbroken, undocumented, and entirely unconcerned with being found by anyone official. I did not feel like a queen, standing there that first night with a dust cloth still folded over one hand and the light fading slowly back down into the stone the way it had risen. I felt like the last page of a book nobody had thought to keep reading, found, finally, by the only reader who had ever bothered to come back every single night for 11 years running. They have not decided yet what to do with me, or with the old book, or with whatever is left of a court that drowned before written memory of this colony began. There is no kingdom waiting for me to rule, no court left to kneel, no throne anywhere that would know my name if I sat on it. There is only a stone that recognized my family's voice, across more centuries than I can hold in my head at once, and a tune I will go on humming, because now I understand exactly what it costs a line to survive, and exactly what it would have cost the world if one tired woman, somewhere along the way, had simply let the tune go quiet instead of passing it on. I still sweep the sunken wing most nights. My daughter has started coming with me sometimes, sitting near the plinth doing her schoolwork while I work the far cases, humming under her breath without noticing she's doing it. I haven't told her yet what those 4 notes are worth. Some truths you hand down the same way they were handed to you, quietly, a little at a time, trusting them.